is back. And now we recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Administrator Guzman, for being here today. On April 7th, the House passed H.R. 3807, which, I'll be kind, I think it was a disingenuous piece of legislation. I'll be kind, not call it a all-out fraud on the restaurant industry. The relief for restaurants and some of the other small businesses that were directly affected. And basically, I think you're probably well aware, it provided $44 billion in appropriations for restaurant revitalization, and an additional $13 billion to stand up some of the brand new grant programs, I guess is the best way to describe them. And then it was sold as, you know, this was going to be paid for with EIDL and PPP fraud monies, recovery. And so I think the most recent estimate is, and this is from Secret Service, is that $1.1 billion in the fraudulent pandemic loans has been recovered. So with the total estimated $84 billion in fraudulent payments, I mean, I hope we can agree that there's not enough time or money or personnel to possibly get that number to match up and recover the $57 billion. So let me ask you this. So is it fair to say the SBA does not currently have the capability to recover the $57 billion needed to pay for the bill that the House has already passed?
My understanding is that bill would rescind funds from COVID EIDL targeted advance and advance that were remaining, not on the fraud side. It's remaining funds from those unused programs as well as shuttered venues and EIDL.
Well, yeah. Let me interrupt you, because the Entree Act is what was introduced by my colleagues here on the committee, and in fact, you know, the Committee for Responsible Government is saying there's still, you know, $884 billion out there that could be recovered, that could be brought back. But that doesn't seem to be happening at all. And I think what we're frustrated by is that there's, you know, this idea that this product is being sold out on the street as, hey, no problem, we're going to do the due diligence on this and the fraud, and we're going to recover all these funds, and then it's going to be readily available for the restaurants. But it just, the math doesn't add up at this point. I'm wondering what your comment is on that.
What I would also share is that the SBA works closely with the IG and other federal authorities who actually recover funds. We report fraud. We collaborate with them.
That's great. That's great. I'm asking you more about the numbers, though. It's just not going to happen, though, is it? Can you admit that it's not going to happen?
They are going to be working really hard to investigate all of this potential fraud.
Well,
and
that's
actually
awesome.
prosecute.
But I don't, like I said, I don't think that gets the job done. And this is the frustration, I think. It's like some of my colleagues said earlier, we got to go back to the district. And when you talk to these restaurateurs, they're like, well, I just read in the paper yesterday that the money's coming. But the fact of the matter is there's no way to get these two figures to match up. The recovery, the amount of the fraud and abuse recovery that's happening out there does not match up with what restaurants are being told throughout this nation is going to be available to them.
Well, I know that the IG himself has not completely estimated how much would be recovered. I know they work hard every day to ensure that happens. Our budget request actually requests a nearly 30% increase for the IG budget so that they can continue to manage to those resource constraints.
So I'm just going to make the assumption that it's not going to happen, that you're not going to be able to recover those funds at a rate that's going to fund H.R. 3807. So what would the strategy be from this point moving forward? How would we address that once it's obvious that there's a shortfall and that the wheels fall off of this entire thing?
You know, the SBA stands ready to implement the program if it's moved forward by Congress. And in terms of the rescissions from any remaining funding or any other sources of capital, I wouldn't be able to speak further about that.
I mean, you know, clearly, I think that the Speaker put the bill 3807 on the floor to develop some political cover for her members. And I think there's even a few Republicans that voted for it. Shame on them. Because it's disingenuous, it's not going to happen, and the restaurants of this nation need to hear that and need to find that out. And I would hope that the SBA be part of not only disseminating that, but lowering the expectations that this bailout is coming anytime soon?
What we're trying to do is continue to support our restaurants. We know, we agree with you, they've been impacted and continue to struggle and face challenges, and we would stand ready to implement anything Congress decides on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Time has expired, and now